Today, we are diving into one of the most incredible journeys in all of human history. We're talking about an escape against absolutely impossible odds that didn't just save one man's life, it gave birth to an entire civilization.
So, how did it all happen? Well, it hinges on a question that sounds like it's straight out of a legend. How did a simple spider's web completely change the course of history? It's not a myth, and to get the answer, we have to go back to one single desperate night in the city of Mecca.
Okay, picture this. It's the dead of night in Mecca. A single house is completely surrounded by assassins. And this isn't just any random mob. This is an elite hit squad with a warrior from every powerful tribe waiting in the shadows. Their mission? To kill the Prophet Muhammad.
So how in the world did it get to this point? Well, this was no random act of violence. This was a cold, calculated conspiracy hatched by Mecca's elite, who were terrified that the Prophet's message was becoming way too powerful.
And, the plan itself was just diabolically clever. It was all worked out in Makkah's main assembly hall. The goal was simple: eliminate the Prophet. But the method, that's where the real genius was. They decided one man from every single tribe would strike the Prophet at the exact same time. Why? Because that way no single tribe could be blamed. The Prophet's own clan couldn't possibly go to war with everyone. It was, they thought, the perfect crime.
But there's this powerful verse from the Quran that gets right to the heart of what happened next. It says that while they were making their plans, a much bigger plan was already unfolding, one they couldn't possibly see.
And that brings us to the escape. Because this wasn't just a panicked run for the hills. It was a counterplan, every bit as strategic as the assassination plot it was meant to defeat. Right as the assassins were finalizing their plot, the Prophet received what is described as divine permission to leave Mecca. He knew he couldn't go alone, so for this incredibly dangerous journey, he chose the one person he trusted most in the world, his best friend, Abu Bakr. And check this out. This was a 5-point plan, a true masterclass in strategy. First up, the decoy. The Prophet's young cousin, Ali, bravely volunteered to sleep in his bed to buy them time. Second, misdirection. Instead of heading north where they were expected to go, they went south, the complete opposite direction. Third, the hideout. They'd hide out in a remote cave for 3 days while the search was at its peak. Fourth, logistics. An amazing covert support system was set up to bring them food and news, and even to have a flock of sheep walk over their tracks to erase them. And finally, number 5, the guide. They hired a non-Muslim guide they trusted to lead them north with camels once the coast was clear. So imagine the scene. The assassins are outside, waiting, thinking their target is sound asleep. And at that moment, the Prophet just walks right past them. It said it was as if they were struck blind. At dawn, they finally storm the house, swords drawn, and the shock is just immense. It's not the Prophet in the bed. It's Ali. Their target had just vanished into thin air. Oh, the leaders in Mecca were beyond furious. They immediately put out a massive bounty on his head, dead or alive. The reward? 100 camels. Now, you have to understand, this wasn't just a lot of money. This was a life-changing fortune. It was enough to turn every single person in the desert into a potential bounty hunter. And this huge manhunt is what leads us to the most nail-biting, intense part of this entire story. Those 3 days hiding in a cave. The Prophet and Abu Bakr make it to this little cave on a mountain called Thawr. But the trackers they hired were experts. I mean, these guys were the best of the best. And they followed the footprints right to the mouth of the cave. They were literally standing just feet away. Can you just imagine the tension inside that cave? Abu Bakr can see the feet of their pursuers through a crack in the rock, and he whispers, if they just look down at their feet, they will see us. He's not just scared for himself, but for everything they stand for. But the Prophet's reply is just, wow. It's one of total calm, total serenity. He says, why do you worry about 2 people when Allah is the third with them? It's this incredible moment of pure human fear meeting absolute, unshakable faith. And this right here is the answer to our question. The trackers look at the entrance to the cave, and stretched perfectly across the opening is a delicate, unbroken spider's web. A pigeon has even built a nest there. They think, well, there's no way anyone could have gone in there without breaking that web. And so they turn around and leave. The most powerful men in Mecca, with the best trackers money could buy, were defeated by the work of a tiny spider. So with the immediate danger over, the real journey could finally begin.
Because this was never just about escaping death. It was about migrating to build something entirely new. This journey is known as the Hijra, and it's so much more than just a trip. This one event is so pivotal that it marks year 1 on the Islamic calendar. It's the moment everything changed, the shift from being a small, persecuted group to becoming the foundation of a new society.
And this new community was basically formed from 2 groups. You had the Muhajirun, which means the emigrants. These are the people who gave up literally everything they had in Mecca for their faith. And then you had the Ansar, which means the helpers. These were the people in the city of Yathrib who were waiting to welcome them with open arms.
So after 10 days of crossing the harsh desert, dodging bounty hunters, they finally see it on the horizon. They arrive safely at Yathrib, and the welcome they receive is just overwhelming, filled with joy and relief. But getting out of Mecca was only half the struggle. The next challenge was maybe even bigger. How do you take these 2 different groups in a city already filled with conflict and build a single, unified society from nothing? See, the city of Yathrib was known for its bitter tribal warfare that had gone on for decades. Just dropping a huge group of refugees into that mix could have been a total disaster. So to stop that from happening, the Prophet did something that was, frankly, unheard of. He established a formal bond of brotherhood. He paired up every single immigrant from Mecca with a helper from Yathrib. But this wasn't just some symbolic gesture. The Ansar, the helpers, were told to literally split everything they owned 50-50 with their new brother. Their house, their money, their business, half of it was now theirs. It was this unbelievable act of generosity that just melted away all the old tribal hatreds and forged a single community bound together by faith.
And the result? The entire city was transformed. Yathrib was renamed Medina, which means the city. It became the first capital of this new society, a beacon of light that would eventually become the heart of a global civilization.
Which brings us right back to where we started. It's a crazy question to think about, isn't it? What if that spider's web had been broken? An entire story of faith, of brilliant strategy, of sacrifice, and incredible brotherhood, all of it, for one breathless moment, was hanging by a single silken thread. Really makes you wonder about the small, fragile turning points in history, and maybe even in our own lives.